Some of these are fun stories and some of them are just tragic.
You go through that process and you just don't know what you're getting yourself into.
Level of development, was formed.
Which some people still struggle with.
Don't get me started.
3 targets right next to each other to control the entire floor. I don't think this is the software, my friend.
What I want to do is to fix it, knowing that it's going to happen so that I never have a problem.
How do we win the next generation?
I learned the hard way.
The street itself was 3 degrees off.
There were a lot of challenges.
There's just kind of stuff flying in every direction.
Okay, so here's our problem. Very expensive piece of equipment. You need to figure out where we can use this.
If you're trying to do wall face to wall face, it won't dimension it.
I didn't use controls.
We can't use any other software except what that software processes.
Yeah, but we looked at everything that was out there and we were like, it was really not what we wanted to do.
Kind of have these issues like, okay, well, what's your backbone for your infrastructure going to be?
Then when you get into it, you realize it's a grind.
That data doesn't go into that platform, or this platform doesn't speak to that hardware, and they called this a digital twin, but it can't link to any data.
They've got issues, they've got challenges on the air, on the ground, air traffic control systems. Everything.
The lack of abundance of software to be able to process certain data collections.
We had to do an analysis of the structural steel versus the design model.
I run into an issue or an error, red flag, whatever, I've never seen before.
We're talking about pushing this back, and you've got finger pointing between a variety of groups.
The people that are in our industry are literally purple unicorns. They're extremely hard to find.
Yeah.
And once you have them, you got to take care of them.
We're struggling as an industry in attracting young minds to construction.
Innovation, everything that we go through, that's this idea of failing forward.
The infinite game, right? It's not something that you're going to make the win today or tomorrow.
It's kind of where the pain points were and kind of where the process is now.
We need to start communicating together to build this ecosystem.
The best place we learn is through failure.
One of those enormous lessons learned.
These panels that we've done have all had diverse topics. We've hit on, pain points and overcoming them throughout the conference. However, I think we wanted to really narrow in here on this panel and talk about what are some of the specific struggles. And we've got a diverse group of people up here from different backgrounds, different companies and industries. So we want to talk about some of the specific pain points that we have seen and that we are seeing, but also try to specifically address how are we also overcoming them and what are some ways that are working for each of us or that we've seen, and some ideas maybe that we haven't even implemented, but I think it'll be a good conversation. So to get started, let's start with some introductions. We'll go ahead and start down on this end.
Yeah, my name is Sam Tian. I work with Myron Construction. We're headquarters in Neenah, Wisconsin. And I'm in the virtual construction department. My sector that I work with the most is industrial.
I'm Dustin Williams. I'm co-founder of Remote Optics. We're doing drone service provider and then also software development and integrating the two.
I'm Naida Flores Venizelos. I'm a designer. I work in the film and TV industry. I mainly do the coordination of 3D manufacturing for production companies and studios like Marvel, Disney, and Netflix.
My name is Adam Chernick. I am a senior spatial computing solutions architect at AWS, but I come from the architecture, engineering, construction, real estate world previously, where I led virtual design and construction at Shop Architects, as well as worked at HOK on the building information modeling side and research and development side.
I'm Val. I'm the director of emerging technology in VDC for New York and Skanska. And I think I've gotten all my gray hairs from trying to implement technology over the years.
My name's Lissa Matoyer. I work for Jacobs. I'm an owner's rep for Los Angeles Community College District, and I'm heading up the digital twin program for them. And I'm in the construction management industry.
Nick Peterson. Good morning, everyone. I'm the 3D product owner at ExxonMobil. My job is to scale out and sustain all of these digital twin reality capture services and platforms throughout our company. Real quick before we get started, just want to say thank you to Matt and the team at RCN for putting this together. Can we all just give a round of applause for them?
Appreciate it. All right. Well, with that, we're going to start right into the easy question. What are some current challenges that we're facing? All of us are obviously coming from different areas, so I think we're going to touch on multiple topics, but we'll just pick whoever would like to start. Let's talk about what is a current challenge that you're seeing firsthand, whether it is within your company implementing technology or in application, for the use case.
So at Skanska, we find that risk is one of the biggest things we deal with. And so all of the technology we have is really about engineering risk out of the job. And so what you can't see, you can't prevent. So reality capture is a big part of the workflow we do. And one of the things we've been looking at, because we do a lot of waterfront work, is how do we see underwater? So one of the things we've been looking at is waterfront drones and trying to engineer that risk out of our jobs.
Where do I start with pain points? No, I read an article on LinkedIn the other day, and it was like, nothing kills innovation faster than not delivering it.
Yep.
You can innovate all day, but if you promise something to somebody, you better deliver it. I think, we have so many vendors coming to our facilities, doing reality capture. The thing that'll kill it the fastest is poor quality, not delivering what you said you were going to deliver. That's probably the biggest thing for us right now.
Yeah, Nick, along those lines too, one of the things that we notice, all these vendors come in, all this technology comes in. It's really hard from a company standpoint when you're trying to look at new innovations or new technologies or new tools to have the same sort of developmental mindset that these companies have. Right? We're used to in the industry, especially like when I started out, you used to get a software in a box with a CD and it was all baked out, ready to go, right? And you just implemented it. It was just a training thing from there. And now everything is developed in an agile system, right? So it's just enough to get going. And then you can have to see what these potential positives might be down the road. That's really challenging for companies to see the bright spots that might be coming, even though the week that they release it, it doesn't do anything for you, or it disappoints, or it's really hard to implement. So it's changing that mindset to have a more agile mindset, right? And look at something, understand what it's doing today, and then staying with it. 1 week of software might not do what you need it to do. A few weeks later, it's doing that thing, right? So that's challenging to stay with things on top of everything else you got to do during the day, right?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. One thing that we've been hearing a lot recently is just that there's so much data, right? Our ability to capture the data has expanded so quickly. And now a big pain point is, moving that data from A to B, processing that data from this format to this format, optimizing this data within these processes into a format that can be usable in these different industry standard tools. And so that's a couple of the big pain points we're hearing.
Good.
Yeah, thank you. In my case, it has been a problem of language. So I wouldn't say that I'm going to generalize here, but the film industry is managed or is being run by people that are not very familiar with technology like 3D scanning. So a person like me going to them and explaining, I can scan all the props in Lucasfilm with this. They don't understand the meaning of that or the use of that. And I need to translate what I know with 3D scanning at the potential to their language, and manage as well their fear of, oh, this is going to be expensive, or I don't know what to do with it. So that kind of conversation, the communication that I have to have with them, I have to manage their language and what their expectations are, and manage their fear to the unknown in a way that I sometimes take that management of the scanning or the service or everything. So I just deliver something that they can understand without, seeing any of the backstage work that you have to do to make them understand a little bit better what it is. So that's been a challenge, but.
I wanted to go back to something Nick and Sam brought up is delivering what you say you're going to deliver. So as an owner's rep for a very large community college district, lots of vendors, lots of companies, lots of software companies are coming to the owner and selling whatever it is that they're selling. How do they know that they can do this well? How do they know that they're going to deliver? They don't. And so really, my job and people that do what I do is I advocate for the client, and I'm a very, very strong advocator for this client, and I will vet everybody and everything to make sure there's some history behind what is being sold to the client, because the client doesn't have time to vet everything. And there's so many folks out there doing a lot of the same thing. It is really hard to get through and find out, hey, is this person going to deliver? Did they deliver in the past? How did they work with another client? And through RCN now, and as we're developing these committees and this network, that's also another resource we can use. We can reach back and see, how this company or this platform has worked for other clients.
I'll piggyback on that one. Not that many years ago, there was no history. None of these drone service providers, they're all figuring it out. A lot of smart people doing a lot of hard work. Now the industry is definitely maturing. There's a lot of need for these certifications and things like that. I will say that once the data is delivered, no one is checking it as much as they should be, at least. There's no reporting. Terrestrial laser scanning is better at it, but what the client is expecting and then proof of that they're actually getting what they're paying for could definitely be improved.
I think we need like a marketplace for solutions in our industry, an independent one. So I think that's something that competition makes solutions better, and that's what we've seen over the years. In Skanska, we have a very comprehensive vetting process, but we like to share and have reviews of all of these so we can bring them in and we can cut the time of implementation, which is very costly. So that's a big pain point for us.
Love it. Let's talk a little bit about scalability. So I know a lot of these pain points play into that, but what are some of the things you think we can do? And again, we've talked about a lot of the obstacles. Now let's try to brainstorm around some of the solutions to some of these. So what are some of the things we can do to help make the implementation of some of the things that we're doing up here easier to scale? And I know some of them have been talked about, like the education piece of like, how do we approach talking about the technology so that people understand it in their language? And what are some steps you guys think?
Well, I think from our construction standpoint, our technology that we adopt, the end goal is always to provide service out to the field, right? That's ultimately what we're trying to do. So, and I think we're in a good spot from a technology standpoint as an industry right now. I've noticed a big uptick in making applications, technologies, whatever it might be, whatever tools you're going after, more user-friendly and easier for us from a virtual construction standpoint to implement those tools out to the field. It's not to say that there aren't a lot of tools out there that are power user tools, but I'm experiencing a lot more tools that in just a simple phone call or a Teams meeting or whatever it might be, we can get a field superintendent up and running with something. That's a big change. We didn't have that 4 or 5 years ago. And every time we'd adopt something, it was this huge lift, right? Because we knew we were going to have to be there and walk that person through it probably again and again. And now I'm seeing that that's not the case. There's a really thoughtfulness behind development now, and I think that's helping us out quite a bit.
I absolutely agree. To expand on that, right? Decreasing the barriers to entry to using these complex tools, making them easier and easier to use. For instance, I feel like a huge piece to the puzzle right now that we're seeing in software across industries is integrations, right? We're seeing a software company develop a tool and integrate with all of these industry standard softwares. So these manual processes that we used to need to go through of exporting from here and converting using a third-party tool and then importing there, a lot of creating these automations is really what's going to unlock a lot of the potential of the technology.
I think it comes from, there's two ways to this. And one is the software side of, what am I actually delivering to the owner and operators? How do I make that user-friendly, like you said? How do I build the integrations into that software? How do I deliver that? And the other is the actual technology side, the laser scanners, the drones. How do I get the owner and operators knowledgeable enough about what these tools are? Like we can sell them, laser scanning for a construction project or mechanical integrity or whatever the use case is. But it's like, how do I then use that data for everything else that I want to do? So the knowledge, the training material, we're not the experts in the industry. So we need to be trained up to the point where we can have an intelligent conversation around what those guys are actually doing in the field. I think that's the biggest thing we got to go do.
And I think it's all about partnerships, right? With the subcontractors, with the owners, with everybody else involved, the vendors. That's how you make something a success, is really being connected, talking to the clients, the clients that you're using the solutions with, and making sure that it meets their needs. Because you start with that question first, and then you kind of introduce the technology there. And that usually works out.
I'm going to straddle two things here. One is a pain point and the solution as well. It's in the construction management, program management, project management industry. From my point of view, it seems as though it's this widely accepted practice that as you move from let's say, inexperienced professional to a manager, to a senior manager, to a director, as you climb the ranks, your use of technology becomes less and less. And maybe that's a status thing in, corporate America, but that does not work for where we are in technology. And so when I say widely used, I mean, I have my very close board of directors and then my, the next ring out. And we talk about this quite a bit because it can't be accepted. It doesn't work. Technology must be used by everybody, to your iPhones, to your iPads, to whatever you're using at home, your Apple TV, whatever technology we're using, it's moving so quickly that as a practitioner, you must use technology. You can't have your assistant do things for you because then you're out of the loop. You don't know how to use it. Then you don't know how to relate to the folks that are actually using it. So there's a gap in understanding, and you're kind of pulling these more mature professionals along, and it's really a huge lift. So what I do is I make it a little bit comfortable. I don't embarrass anyone, but I'm like, hey, let's do this. Why don't you just sit next to me? We'll do it together. And then next time, if you need help, just raise your hand, text me, IM me, whatever, and we'll help you along. And just kind of pushing, I'm pushing that agenda because everybody should be using technology because it changes so quickly. We all need to be there.
That's very interesting, actually. That really relates to what I'm saying about the structure of a business. So when it comes to what I have in mind with my projects for 3D scanning sets or props, the strategy that I see with scanning is selling as a business strategy. So it's not just for the prop maker or whoever is going to deal with the prop, is for the entire company. So I see it as integrating everyone in the company to understand, look, this is what we can do in a language that in a way can reach many people within the company. And that's how, as they were saying yesterday, I think you make that file, you make that 3D scan operational and easy to understand. So I think that's a great way of solving that.
And that's from the president to the CEO. That's every level should be able to operate at some technological, level.
Yeah, you're enable them. That's great.
I think there's a lot of software that it's really, really strong, like point solutions that let you create these really amazing deliverables. What we try to do is, for now, until it's something that more people can just jump in and do themselves, maybe in a cloud-based environment or something like that, is just delivering the exact thing to like a suite of things that any stakeholder on the project might need, all the way, just simple imagery to very specific set of PDFs, like on a recurring progress tracking kind of drone flights. We're just delivering, we have a consultation call before the project and then throughout the project. And we're just delivering all the things that everybody all stakeholders on the project can utilize some portion of that. It helps the scalability.
And I'm going to go back to what we were just talking about, because I think, and here's the end of the thought. What happens is when you have these more mature professionals and they feel disconnected and there's a gap, what happens? They start kind of falling out of the industry, and we don't want that. I don't want that. A well-balanced workforce at all levels is needed. We can't just have one generation running things, right? We need multiple generations, because it's proven that works best.
And I kind of want to add to your point. So kids coming out of school are actually tech-enabled. Mm-hmm. And something happens down the line that we teach them not to use the iPad to solve problems. And so we need to resolve that as well, because it's kind of a pain point in the industry where we have kids coming from these great schools and have been taught the technology already. But once they get on site, something happens. Things change for them. So
and that starts leading back to like the cultural piece, right? Like new workforces coming in with the technology side, and they're stepping into maybe businesses that haven't, adopted that. And they're like, wait, where's I have to take this notepad, like I feel like I'm stepping backwards. And that's a big piece there still, which is one of the pain points, is working on the culture and how can we create a environment that when we now bring this new workforce in is actually stepping in excited because it makes sense to where they're at now. Just in the same way that when we're talking about deliverables and technology, we have to meet the client or the user at where they are. Well, we kind of have to start doing the same with our workforce. We have to meet them where they are and start adapting our businesses and our processes to who the people are that are going to come work for us or work with us, which I think really ultimately leads, no matter who it is that we're talking about, it really leads to communication, I think. Absolutely. Yep.
Matt, just to kind of piggyback on that, that's one thing we've started doing recently. I think when we started bringing in new technologies to implement out to our workforce in years past, we'd go for the low-hanging fruit, right? Let's find the techiest young person that's out there and make them our champions. What we found over the years, though, is that that particular person already understood it and was already immersed in it, and they don't end up being the kind of champion that's going to push that culture to the rest of the group. So now we're kind of switching it over to the people that we in our minds have this preconceived notion that they're going to have a tough time with it, and working through that with them and getting them on board. they become champions that far exceed what any person that already understood the technology would do.
Absolutely. I think that, sometimes the people that understand and utilize the technology might not be the best person to articulate the value proposition of that technology, right? And so connecting those dots and creating sort of internal partnerships is really important.
I want to talk about feedback mechanisms. So do we as companies, and maybe you guys have some, do you have a process in place that you can accept or collect feedback from, and whether it be external, like with clients, or even internal, like as you're working through problems and pain points with bringing, hires, or just feedback mechanisms in general? What's some thoughts around those?
We do. We do project reviews, lessons learned, that type of thing. The problem is we usually do that on the ones that went bad, not the ones that went good. The ones that went good, you're just like,
sign off and move on.
I got the deliverable I wanted, the exchanger fit. Usually do the lessons learned and that type of stuff on the ones that went bad. But I think that that's an area we can improve, because you do need to showcase when it does go well. You need to show the executives or the plant managers, we did this job and these are the steps we took to do it. We did the reality capture up front. We did terrestrial scanning. We tied it to control. We did the fabrication quality, isometric drawings, sent it to the fab shop. It got built correctly at the fab shop, shipped to the site, and it fit up. And those are the things that managers just expect to happen, but we don't showcase all the individual steps that it took to get there. We say, we just created the isometric drawing, sent it to the fab shop, we're good. But there was a lot of steps, a lot of new technology used in that process. And I think that's an area we can definitely improve.
Yes, we have a digital process, tech enablement process. But what I really like to do is really be connected to the field teams and be face to face and kind of get their feedback. And that's part of the construction field that I really love, is you get to connect with your customers directly. On the software side, you're kind of, maybe have some layers there, but that's the part of the industry I really love, is actually getting that feedback directly from the superintendent, whether it's good or bad. I'm there for it.
We've recently started doing surveys of our services that we provide out both internally and externally. And then we also do those same surveys to our internal virtual construction group, and then put that in a matrix, right? So we can kind of see where those numbers are. We started this a couple of years ago, and the initial year that we did it, we had expectations of how good we thought we were doing certain services. Didn't always align with how both our internal and external partners thought we were doing in those services. That could be just a lack of understanding what that service was, or that maybe they didn't use it. But a lot of times it probably fell more to how we were delivering that service to them. So that's kind of been neat from an introspective standpoint, to have some numbers to back it up and something visual to say. Maybe that's something we need to work on a little bit.
I want to remind people, if you do have questions you want to submit, you can use the QR code that we've been using all week. I do have one that I'll jump in and pose here. Is there a best of class IT ERP platform to warehouse, view, permission, integrate with legacy systems, all of the new reality capture / digital twin data?
No. There's no one software to rule them all. There's no one integration tool to rule them all. We've tried a lot of them, but there's no one monolithic stack that I want to put all my money in, for sure. We need to make sure the data is interoperable. It's agnostic. It's in a neutral file format. Like, it can go from one platform to another, because if you put all of your stuff in one basket, what happens to that company? If something happens, I need to move that data somewhere else. I spent a lot of money collecting it. Now I got to put it, in a different platform. It's got to be interoperable. You have to have many different platforms in the ecosystem.
I absolutely agree there. And right, flexibility, I think, is key.
Yeah.
And allowing people to move information and process information the way that they need to for their business. And not all businesses are the same, right? All businesses are very different. And so giving them the building blocks that they can use to build exactly what they need for their solutions is important. Right, following best of class industry standard security, of course, is top of mind for everything that you're going to use these days. But then again, back to decreasing the barriers to entry, allowing anybody to integrate it with their existing stacks, with their existing technology. Anyway, so it's a hard problem, and we're working closely with our customers to understand what those pain points are and understand what those needs are to make sure that the infrastructure that we're developing fits those needs. There's one right now that's open source that AWS put out called VAMS, which is the Visual Asset Management System, which some of our customers are using, and we are. We're working backwards and trying to make it as good as we can to fit those needs.
And to circle back with what Matthew rolled out yesterday, the RCN, so that those committees and the information collected and created, that's going to help point folks what platform to use, what software to use. It's been tested, tried, opinions, whatever. It'll help folks navigate through a little bit quicker on what to use what for.
Yeah, I think it feels like one of those things that it's hard to find what's out there. What can it do? Which should I use? Depending on my use, depending on the industry. And I feel like working together. I mean, everybody up here has gone through that process a little bit, right? We're trying to find the next hardware piece because we're trying to find a software to host, and yet usually that just stays in that business. You spent all this time and all this research, and I think collectively starting to gather that and build it into a shared process, it'll really help. It'll help all of us. And I look back at when I'm getting into all of these tech, I'm like, man, I wish I had somewhere to go. And that's what's driving me to say, if it's not there already, let's create it, because of our growth of the industry, we still, what are we 5% of the amount of people that'll be doing this type of work in the next 10 years? So the next 90% of people that start getting into it, we can help formulate, we can help make sure that they don't hit all the same pain points that we have, which will help the end clients get their work, properly. It'll help us as service providers, know what software to pick, know what hardware to use. Hopefully that's the direction it goes. We think so.
And it's all about mentorship. I think all of us should make it a point to mentor someone when they come into our industry. Because a lot of times we sit there and try to get a point cloud out or, get a model out, but really sitting down and kind of transfer your knowledge with someone, it's really going to help us in the long term. I truly believe that. You pay it forward.
Yeah, that really helps. That really just hit me because right now I'm in the process of trying to figure out the technology that is out there, the technology that I can use with the information that I have to capture that is so sensitive that I cannot share it everywhere. And it's being a whole process of 2 years trying to figure out, should it be that machine? Should it be that software? Do I have to develop? So by the time you spend all that time and then you start as an entrepreneur, as a freelancer, you get tired and then you stop doing the things that you really want to do. And then you just come to places like this and it was like, oh, right, I can talk to people and then just maybe this thing that I'm thinking about is going to happen some point. So that really helps. And that's actually really, really helpful. That would be great.
All right, next question. Can you share pain points dealing with insurance in regard to these conversations?
Insurance. Maybe export controls and carnets. trying to get equipment overseas or, all those other places. No, we have to have insurance on, every time someone goes out to a facility, whether it's a pain point or not, it's kind of, you have to have it, period.
We actually, taking insurance into kind of advantage because we're working with Zurich and others to bring technology that actually fits for us and for them. And so we're piloting a number of technologies right now. They're insurance tech, I guess, and we're trying to push that boundary to where something is very available, and we talked about reducing the risk there. So it's something we're working hard on.
I was going to expand on that exactly as maybe not a pain point, but an opportunity, right? It is leveraging these different tools and mediums across different organizations within these companies is, of course, it's going to benefit the VDC team and the organization and the construction team and maybe even the real estate sales team, but then also, right, the insurance team having these assets as an archive, as a historic reference is incredibly important and finding a lot of value in those processes as well.
And the reality capture definitely fits in the mold. So it's definitely helpful to have that on the site.
I heard that question a little differently, but I'll just answer what I thought I heard, which was like certificates of insurance, which is a pain point, especially for people starting out. We've got 365 days a year, like 10 million in insurance, but that's a tall order for someone starting out who's doing one scan a week or something like that. So more of more of an opportunity is like just high level insurance, but more specific to just the time frame that is needed for it.
Yeah, I wasn't sure exactly where to go either. That's why I posed the question. We got diverse people up here. But it actually does make me think, maybe we can even talk just a little bit. Maybe the question was coming from the risk side. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit. As we're looking at all these technologies, some of them are being used in very critical ways and, very important projects. And maybe that is an aspect of the insurance side too, is like if someone's just getting into scanning, they're like, well, what insurance do I need in order to be able to do this type of work? Or what kind of risk am I taking on by starting to fly drones and to scan on sites? And maybe we can address a little bit of the concerns and or things to watch out for in the risk side of it.
We're fortunate enough to have a fairly substantial risk department. And so we have individuals that are focused on that. So every technology that we bring in, anything that's going to be doled out to the field goes through them in terms of what risks is that going to take on, what liabilities are going to be there. As smaller companies come into those technologies, you may not have those resources available to you. There's resources out there, but that might be something too to have as RCN develops these resources and sites, have that information out there. Because there's a lot. It depends on what you're doing. Every technology kind of brings on its own little nest of risks and things that you have to look for. So yeah, if you don't have those resources in-house, having something out there or talking to the people here at this conference, there's a lot of people that do a lot of different things, and you'd be surprised how many different types of things you have to think about before you go out and implement these technologies. And we get laser focused on what is our deliverable, and we sometimes skip what those risks might be or what we have to do to protect ourselves with that thing. One thing I think of in particular is we got really excited with 360 photos and the fact that we could throw them up on the Autodesk Construction Cloud, right? Not realizing that when that first came out, there are no permissions on those photos. So every photo that came out in daily reports is now available to everybody on that team. There's a strategic way that those photos get shared in daily reports, and that kind of leapfrogged over that without going through the proper channels, right? So there's all these little things that you just have to think about before you just dive in and implement something, for sure.
I think a little template would be nice. I see all kinds of different requirements. Just we're proposing on projects across the country, all different industries. One day it's like, someone's just saying, yeah, go ahead, do whatever you want on our site, to all the way to like a 10-page application when there's no real need for some of the requirements because it's already a federally regulated industry. If you're talking about drones, for example, the FAA is regulating it now, and it's definitely important to maintain that documentation because they change it multiple times during even just a regular project. We were flying on the Las Vegas Raiders Stadium, and they significantly changed the FAA regulations twice during that, which really impacted what we were doing. So just like a jumping off point, every business has, their own flavor of risk. But I think that there's opportunity in that we work for a couple of companies that just blanket don't allow drones to be flown by their employees. So we go through the risk and then we fly for them just because they don't even want to touch it. But I think they're seeing the benefit now. So if they had something as a template, I think they would try to bring some of that in-house if they could.
It sounds like we need to go back to basics and create that risk register, do that SWOT analysis on new technology, on changes in processes, even new processes that we put in place, because things will be teased out that you didn't think of. And we're moving so quickly with technology, you just forget this is the basics, this is what we do. It's for folks that are in construction management, that's what we do in construction management. Risk is one of the biggest things.
And one of the things is take your time in implementation. Is start with a proof of concept, discovery, and then ramp up from there. You don't want to put something in the field that you're not sure about yet. So that's how you start kind of engineering the risk out. And I would argue some of the projects we have, it's more risky not to use that technology. Like we had a large renovation Monahan Station in New York, and we scanned for 5 years, and that was the only way we could actually build that job. And so sometimes it's risky not to use the technology. So it's case by case basis, but you have to start slow and ramp up, and so be comfortable if something doesn't work out. Don't be attached to that technology necessarily, because you might have to go back to step one and try something new.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And it reminds me when I was talking about the innovation process of there's always a problem, there's always a struggle, but which one's worse? Like a lot of times people look at trying to take a technology to solve a problem. Let's use an as-built of a building, right? Because we're going to go do a renovation. We're in construction. If you go scan it, you have risk. There's some potential of like, okay, what process are you using? Are you using the right tool? Are you registering it properly? Is there control? All of those are potential issues and they are risky, but if you're not scanning it at all, what are you doing? And so is the potential of the issues that come by using the technology better or worse than the potential of the issues of not using it, even if you do it wrong? But the part that I think is important is there's still a lot of issues happening around using different scanners, using different control, and then not knowing what your accuracies are. And I know we've talked about that a lot this week, but part of why I really talk about survey a lot and accuracies a lot is because it's one of the biggest pain points I see people running into over and over. Is if there's a project where you have a certain tolerance you have to try to hit and you aren't sure how to get there, then you are taking on a lot of risk if you're going out and scanning something and saying, here's this data, and now someone fabricates, someone is trying to install, something is happening with that data, and if that data's off, then who's responsible for the delays, the materials, so there is big risk in taking on projects that maybe you're not really sure or you haven't had the training. And that also goes back to the need for the education, because people don't know what they don't know. When some people get sold a scanner that does 1 millimeter accuracy, they think if I scan the building, this data is 1 millimeter accurate. Some of them don't understand the processes of what really happens with that data by the time you're done scanning that building. That's something I think that has to continue to be talked about. And it's not because, hey, you don't know what you're doing. It's because, hey, I don't want you to get in trouble and screw up yourself and have, a lawsuit and go out of business, or, screw up the project or screw up the client. I think by talking about these things, it helps everybody. It helps you, and it helps you avoid those issues.
Yeah, and not wanting to use the technology again after that, right? I think that's a big piece of the puzzle. Is we all know in this room that adoption for these technologies is growing very, very quickly right now. People are seeing the practical impacts that this technology is having on their businesses. But if you spend that money on the scanner, or you rent one to test it, to check a workflow, and you unfortunately don't have a good time or don't get the results that you want on that first time, the chances that you're going to do it again right after decrease substantially, right? So having that educational content is really important, I think. And again, having the tools and having the communication to allow people to know what to use to get to that end asset and get to that end result that they need.
And ask for help. There's people to help you, because a lot of times you don't know who to reach out to. And so having an organization like yours, you have a place to go to kind of find some of the content. Sometimes you don't know who to turn for certain technology. It's so new. Who's tested that?
Because if you're scanning and you're not sure what you're doing, how do you know who you're going to ask for help from that also does scanning? How do you even know who to ask? It makes it difficult.
Yeah, I mean that happened to me. I just use handheld scanners, and once a construction manager or someone knows that you're doing scanning, they think you are doing all the scanning and use all the machines out there. So they just can go from scanning this to scanning, a castle or something huge. So I've been in that position when I just go like, yeah, sure, I'll do the job. And then I start finding people that I know in the BFX industry, they have LiDAR scanners. And I just go like, so you need to start there is opportunity to collaborate, because I cannot have all the machines to do all the jobs. And that's when we come to the community. It's like, okay, I need to do this. Where are we? Or even if I'm in the UK and I need to scan this other thing that the production has in LA, how can we connect? So there is a lot of opportunities out there.
One of the things, Adam and I were talking backstage, my work with Amazon Robotics, it's a lot of new technology we were rolling out. And yes, there were failures along the way, all around 360, everyone. And one of the things that was really helpful was we would do a root cause analysis. We would document it in full. And then we would have a very large group, client, consultants, folks on the ground, the technicians, everyone attend that meeting. And we would walk through, where did we fail? Where did we succeed? Because if you're going to move to the next stage of this technology, you need to know where we maybe slightly stepped this way or went, left instead of right. And that was really, really helpful and appreciated with Amazon, because you need to know where you went wrong so you can go right next time. And then for RCN, right, if we were to do something like that, you would have a library of all these, root cause analysis for this technology, and people wouldn't be making the same mistakes over and over because they could find that data.
We talk about risk, and I think ExxonMobil, we look at risk in every single project. We have to make sure the product stays in the pipes, stays in the equipment, or else something bad is going to happen. Like Josh Burrows mentioned yesterday, the work process today is put a guy in a man lift and put him 200 feet in the air to go do a visual inspection. The risk of flying a drone compared to that, I'll fly a drone every day. Yep. It can run into the flare stack. It's 2 pounds. It's not going to hurt it. But putting a guy in a man lift in a basket and 200 feet in the air, I'll fly a drone any day. We will try the technology to get people out of harm's way all the time.
Absolutely. We're going to do a couple last questions here. Do you see issues with internally developing a process, then finding service providers that support your process?
Yeah, I think one of the things that when we start doing discovery is look at inside and outside the, in the marketplace. So doing good research early before you roll your sleeves up and develop something is so important. And again, it goes back to kind of partnership with industry leading vendors that you can kind of see their roadmap and where things are going. So if you have a pain point, you can have, communicate that pain point, and in a few years or a year, that could be into their software. So I think we shy away from building internally a lot of times because of it, because we're not a software company. And so there comes a lot of pain points with, managing the software, bug fixes, things like that after you develop it that a lot of people don't think about.
Yeah, I think the quickest way to kill any innovation is to take everything on yourself. Yeah. And we've learned that over the years. If it's a big technology jump and something that you're trying to implement in your company, there's just so many nuances to everything that has to happen on these more complex technologies. And to think that you're going to have that entire team come in and do everything successfully day one, and then make a deliverable that everybody's going to be happy with, I think that's a little unrealistic, and it's not fair to your team trying to get this in there. Find people that, and laser scanning is a great example, find people that are really good at it. Down the road, set up a roadmap, right? Maybe you're going to start having internal team members doing that, but don't jump into that day one, because you're just going to have more failures that are going to push that pendulum back and not give you the successes that you need for that program to be successful.
I heard a really good quote earlier this week, and I apologize that I forget who said it. So if it was you, let me know. But it was, the enemy of a great idea is 5 other ideas. And I really liked that quote because I think it's so true, right? I absolutely agree with you. Creating a roadmap, prioritizing, making sure that you are very intentional about your decisions.
Todd Wynn, Rogers O'Brien.
Nice. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, let's do one more. I know we're at time here. When it comes to sharing your successes, so things we've done that are working, things we have overcome, are any of you currently working on any publications or white papers or things to share those findings?
Come here and do a presentation.
Yeah.
I'd say no publications yet, but getting in front of, an external audience like this, showing that artificial intelligence and 3D that we're doing, that is a big win for us. We are scaling that from just the pilot phase to I'm doing this everywhere now. So it's not technically a publication, but we are scaling this technology. We are using this in our daily business now.
My medium is video, so I like to create video case studies and kind of show off the technology we're using. And I think everyone has their medium to kind of communicate that out. About 5 years ago, I had a friend who was in communication and kind of urged me on to get onto LinkedIn a little bit more and create these video stories, because a lot of what we do is really behind the screen and nobody really sees what the work we do. So part of my videos kind of cover some of the technology we're piloting, some of the successes we have. And so I urge everybody to find their medium and their voice to communicate those out.
I think a lot of times too, when we do have successes, we're usually not maybe putting out a white paper, but we're going through with that partner and publicizing that success, right? So it might be through that company's website, or it might be a presentation at a conference. I don't know that we're necessarily going out and putting out publications there. We do document everything we do internally, right? Because we want to understand and record what that success was and what the steps were to get there. Maybe that would be great material to put on RCN site.
We do that too. And we have all the benefit calculations of, I did this project really well and I used to do it this way and I saved a whole bunch of money doing it this way. Nothing I can share publicly, but we track all of that. We have to, because there is an ROI to do this. But it is something that, people like to keep near and dear to their heart and not share with everybody.
Case studies, anecdotes from customers, guidances, right? Blog posts, all of these different mechanisms to, like a lot of it you need to document internally, but then when you can share that publicly.
Yeah.
We've been doing a lot of lunch and learns just to try and for clients for their internal team. That's sharing wins and lessons learned. And people seem really receptive. We can do a lot of really good Q&A there. I'm a little bit introverted, so at these things, I'm a big sponge. So the other way that we're working on software that address a lot of the basic pain points that were discussed. But stay tuned for that. That's going to be on my public.
You mentioned lunch and learns. This is something that kind of went away when COVID happened and the pandemic, and everybody did Zoom meetings all over the world. But getting in front of the people, face to face, and showing, how you use this technology and similar types of projects you've done in the past means so much to somebody like an owner, rather than over a Zoom call where nobody has their video on and you don't even know if they're paying attention or they're even awake. So nowadays, if you can get to somebody face to face, do it. Absolutely.
Worth it.
Yeah, I think that's the case in the film industry. We are an industry on the TV as well that we like to talk, and we just sit down and talk about the things that we're doing. So I've seen a lot of part of the videos they do about the making of. They are introducing, they're filming more the people who are making the movies, and instead of more of the sets and the actors. So yeah, that's happening, but they see the quality of the people who are working and making props, making sets. And how I approach it is just talking to other people, showing them, as you said, face to face, how things are, how I scan, and I go to their offices. Here is the scanner, and this is how it works. And I do a lot of free projects so they can understand how things work. So for me and the type of industry that I work, sometimes that's how it works best.
Yeah. People love to see it. Especially the metrology scanners and stuff like that. Those are easy. I can scan this cup, or I can pull out my iPhone and use Polycam, and I'll have this whole thing in 3D in a second.
My office has a lot of windows, and people, they just walk by. It's like, oh, you're scanning, and that's how you.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I create material by inviting a lot of people to a conference and then filming all of their presentations. No, but really, I think that goes to show, though, everybody's got all their internal stuff they've been doing, right, and working on, and things that you can or can't share. But really, that's my call to say, if you have material you can share, bring it, because that's what we want our education center on the website to really build to become, is anything that is willing to be shared that you think is helpful, is a case study, bring it. And we want to build that out within the education center. We even said that for, we really like this one stage format where we don't have a lot of classes, but one thing that does is it means we only get, 20 or 30 presentation slots per event. Well, we had over 120 applications to present this year. And so what we've said is we could do virtual presentations and still record those, because the value that people have to share of what they would have presented on different technologies, different use cases, we want that library on our website to continue to build so that everybody in the community can go find presentations and industry specific and technology specific that are beneficial to them. So that's really my call, is if you're not already working on white papers, you're not working on education content, or you have some you've already done, we would love to talk about, sharing that. So appreciate you guys being here, sharing, giving some advice. Thank you guys for your time, and we'll move on to the next presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.